This is a Sports Radio Live podcast
covering your world of sports. Bryan Houston's Sports Radio Live. It's weekdays at 3 on 99.3 Talk FM, the talk of East Texas.
From MLB.com, it's one of the best baseball writers in all the world, Richard Justice. How you doing, Richard?
I'm doing good, Brian. How are you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. Now, when we last talked, you were still working with the Chronicle. Now you're with MLB.com. How are you liking the new gig?
Well, I like it good. It's a big change from print because the deadlines are different. Where you have to in the print, you have to get it in, get your story filed pretty fast. And I have a little more time after games, so I'm getting used to getting back to my hotel room at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So it makes for some long nights, but it's a good thing. You have time to go down and wander around the clubhouse and do your job.
Now, you are at Yankee Stadium right now, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so you're going to be watching the Yankees and the Mets tonight, and I guess keeping a real close eye on Johan Santana, correct?
Yeah, it's fantastic what's happened to him. I'll tell you, Brian, these guys had an interesting career. The Astros let him go in the expansion draft and to the Marlins. The Marlins immediately traded him. And he was 3 organizations in before he really found himself. And what made last week so emotional is that the people who know him, he's one of those guys that lights up a room. And I'm telling you, we covered him in spring training, like long toss session, 10 reporters would be there. One bullpen session, 10 reporters. And the reason was we thought we were covering the end of a career, that was a very complicated shoulder surgery. And a lot of pitchers don't come back from shoulder operations. So for a guy, for a surprising young team, and a guy that everybody likes, to see him standing out there with a chance to throw a no-hitter, it was really overwhelming for the many, many people who've been around this guy throughout his career.
Now the scary thing is, though, because he threw so many pitches last week, I know Terry Collins probably was near a heart attack or a stroke the entire game last week. And so I guess, what's the pitch count going to be tonight on him?
Just asked Terry Collins that, and he said there's not one. I mean, he's got 100 left in his mind, but he's going to, if he has a bad first inning, he has to throw a bunch of pitches. It's funny, though, Terry said that other managers, Davey Johnson this week, others, have contacted him and say, man, we knew what you were going through there. There's no right answer there about you want the guy to get the no-hitter. The guy says he's not coming out. But if something happens to that left shoulder, you're the one responsible.
Okay, well, I hope you enjoy that ball game tonight. In the meantime, we got our own little slice of problems going on down here in the Arlington area, because you got a team in Texas that started out the year 15-4, and since then they've gone 18-21. From your national perspective, what do you make of all of this?
I've seen them a bunch in person, on the road, and at home, and your question reminds me of the time in. Really dates me in '84. I said to Sparky Anderson, I said, "Well, you're only under 500 after May 15th," and he goes, "They play 162, son. You got that?" So, but you start this season, and there's going to be attrition. That's why you have to get as much pitching as possible. They're still leading the American League in runs. I mean, I think they're going to be okay there. Hamilton is in a real funk. Ron Washington said the other day, if my desk moves, he's going to take a swing at that. I mean, but that's who he is. You're not going to change who he is. We've asked him, you're going to give him, why don't teams give him the Bonds treatment? He said, well, Bonds, if a ball was 2 inches outside, wouldn't swing at it. The umpire knew, he had a better eye than the umpire. And Josh is not that way. So what you have now is you count on certain things. You count on Derek Holland to be at a certain level, hasn't been there. You count on Feliz, and you have to soldier through. Now, what they do have is they have so much depth. I mean, they have a guy that made the All-Star team last year as a starting pitcher, Agondo, now will move back into the rotation. Feliz, they didn't know what they were going to do with Feliz coming back because they were unsure of how many innings his elbow, arm, whatever could shoulder. Now you need him. So they have to weather the storm. But, look at it, Brian. Is there anybody else in that division that scares you? I keep thinking the Angels are good. But the bottom line is the Angels are just not very good offensively. They're just not very good. And, I mean, they've got the Mike Trout at the top, and they've got Albert in the middle. But other than that, the guys haven't done a very good job. So the division's there to be won, and I think a lot of it is, and I asked Ron Washington and Michael Young, some guys last week about this, or I guess it was 10 days ago, about playing through slumps. And they said the one great thing we've had is we've been able to play through everything now. Ron did call a team meeting Saturday night for a little to blow off a little steam. He's not the type that turns over the food table or anything. But I think there'd been some base running things and things like that bothered him. You only ask a little bit of a club. Like on the first day of spring training, Joe Madden tells his players he only has 2 rules. Rule 1 is run hard to first base. Rule 2 is play defense. And if you think about it, everything that you do stems from those 2 things. You run hard to first base and you put an emphasis on playing good defense. Pretty much the rest of your game will fall into place. And the Rangers haven't been doing some of either of those things. So you got to play through it.
Now, I look at a lot of the different websites that have the power rankings, and even despite the problems they've had over these last 40 games or so, most of these places, including MLB.com, have the Rangers still as the number 1 team in Major League Baseball. Is that your opinion right now?
I would say so. Yeah, they're so deep. I mean, you look at that lineup, and I've seen. You watch one of their games, and their lineup is just a joke to try to pitch to. I mean, they battle. They have good competitive at bat from top to bottom. They just don't have anybody that gives up an at bat. Cleveland is not bad. If you look at Cleveland's lineup, it's a lot better than people think. And then it's just a matter of getting the pitching straightened out. So, even with all these injuries, they've still got Darvish, who's been great. They've got Harrison, who's been pretty good. And they've got Colby Lewis, who's a proven guy. I mean, in the way the game is today, if you've got 3 proven starters, and this is, not even knowing what we're going to get out of Feliz and Ogando and whoever comes up, they have a very deep minor league system. They can go out and get a player that's available at the trade deadline. And they have they have the back of their bullpen is fantastic. So my long answer to a short question is, don't feel sorry for the Rangers.
Well, and when I initially contacted you about coming on the show, it was right after the signing of Roy Oswalt, and you covered Oswalt down in Houston when you were covering the Astros on a regular basis. What kind of impact might he have on this Texas Rangers staff, given his age and his situation in life now?
Well, if he has the same impact that Andy Pettit had, it'll be pretty good. Andy looks like he's rediscovered the fountain of youth. I think he's going to come in. I think he's going to be competitive. He knows how to pitch. He's got a high aptitude for it. And if he's okay below the waist, his legs, his groin, all that, that's where a lot of his problems have come from in the past. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be part of what they do, and they're going to allow him. They're not going to lean on him. They have such a good bullpen that if he gives them 7 innings, that's really a good night at work. So, I can't. Roy will not take the ball if he doesn't think he's still capable of pitching at a high level. In other words, if he doesn't think he's capable of being Roy Oswalt.
And it goes to prove once again, and we've said it a billion times, and back when the season started, you've covered the Rangers for many, many years, and you saw what an embarrassing thing their pitching staff used to be, and then it was almost an embarrassment of riches before the season started, but it proves you just can't have too much pitching in this game.
No, and it guides everything. If you look back at the 2005 Astros, they had a bad offense, but they had Pettit, Clemens, and Oswalt. They were in every game. And when you have pitching, you got a chance to win. People laugh at the staff, the quality start. But what the quality start means is at least 6 innings and no more than 3 earned runs. And that means you're going into the 7th inning, you kept your team in the game. And that's what good pitchers do.
One of the other disturbing things, Richard, about this, and I know, again, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, but it's the teams they've been losing to. It seems like they've played down to the level of the competition when they've had an opportunity here through what would have appeared to be an easy part of their schedule to really build up a massive lead, playing against the Royals and the A's and people like that in Seattle, and they let this opportunity get by playing sub-500 baseball. Will that come back to bite them, you think?
No, you play in the A's. The A's have 3 of the best young starting pitchers in baseball, and that was the result there. And I'm telling you, the Royals are better than their record. Their starting pitching is a year behind their position players. With they're going to be pretty legitimate. And, I just don't look at it that way. I think, we saw too much last year down the stretch where you have to compete. You have to worry about yourself. Derek Jeter was just asked, have been keeping up with the Mets? Nope. Have been keeping up with the National League? Nope. He says, I don't even keep up with the American League. I worry about what's in this room here, what I'm doing, and go from there. And that's the way I look at that. You gotta look at yourself before you look at the other teams. I think I don't believe in quality wins. I think a win is a win is a win.
Take it and run. Richard Justice from MLB.com. Before we let you go, just real quickly, because you are covering baseball on a national level now, beyond what we've been talking about, what do you see as being the story of the year so far in baseball?
Well, the first story of the year was Albert Pujols getting off to such a slow start from an individual standpoint. And then the second story was Bryce Harper, 19 years old, coming up and looking comfortable. I was talking to a scout today. I said, the most amazing thing is after you're around the guy for 3 or 4 days, the way he handles the media, the way he plays the game, the way he interacts with his teammates, you can't believe he's 19 years old. You just can't believe it. But the larger story, I think, is it's a blurry year. Is that there are, I think, 18 teams I counted this morning within 4 games of first place. I think there are probably 20 teams that say they're in the mix. And you can't right now, you can come close with Texas, but you can't right now put your finger on any team and say, I know that team's going to the postseason. Now, like you, I think the Rangers are going. I think the Reds probably are going, and the Yankees. But right now, the division races, especially in the NL East and the AL East, are so tight. There's no team that can really feel comfortable or where it's at. And you know what that means for the Astros, who've got a bunch of parts that could help a team down the stretch. It means the new general manager there, Jeff Luhnow, is going to be in a great position of strength as this thing winds down.
You mentioned one thing though, with one additional team now in the wild card race. Is that going to really tighten things up where you find people less willing to trade when it comes time for that?
Yeah, and based on what the Cardinals and the who came from the Cardinals and the Rays did last September, both to come from 10 back, you're going to say, well, what defined out of it? I'm telling you, Tony La Russa is a very good friend of mine, and when he had a meeting in late August with his guys that basically said, don't embarrass yourself. And in his mind, the way he set up his rotation and all, he wanted to finish in front of Cincinnati. He and Dusty don't really like each other. I mean, that was the goal right there. And then lo and behold, what he told his guys was just keep playing it. Let's see where we're at. So, I mean, I think if you had told Tony on August 25th, you're going to win the World Series, he might have not. I mean, he would have, thought, wow, a lot of stuff is going to happen.
That's crazy. It's a great baseball season so far. Richard, thank you very much for coming on with us. We really do appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy your evening over at Yankee Stadium tonight for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, thanks. Good to talk to you. Richard Justice from MLB.com.
This is a Sports Radio Live podcast.
Covering your world of sports. Bryan Houston's Sports Radio Live. It's weekdays at 3 on 99.3 Talk FM, the talk of East Texas.